Good evening. Welcome to TVB News. The foreign ministry in Beijing has confirmed US President Donald Trump will embark on a state visit to China from May the 13th to 15th for a highly anticipated summit with President Xi Jinping. This will be Trump's first trip to the country since 2017. The leaders of two of the world's largest economies are set to end talks with a sprawling agenda that spans trade, security, geopolitical tensions, and artificial intelligence. The White House announced Donald Trump will land in the Chinese capital Wednesday evening, meeting President Xi the next morning, followed by a tour at the Temple of Heaven. Trump will also attend a state banquet and have a bilateral tea and working lunch with Xi before departing on Friday. A spokesman for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs reiterates that head of state diplomacy plays an irreplaceable role in providing strategic guidance for the Sino-US relationship and expects Trump's visit to expand bilateral cooperation and bridge differences.
China stands ready to work with the U.S. to expand cooperation and manage differences in the spirit of equality, respect, and mutual benefit, and provide more stability and certainty for a transforming and volatile world.
The two leaders last met face-to-face at the Busan summit on APEC sidelines in October 2025, during which they agreed to a one-year trade war truce that saw a temporary reduction in tariffs. According to American officials, the pair's upcoming conversations would touch upon the possible extension of the truce that allows the flow of rare earth minerals into the United States. Plans for a new Board of Trade and Board of Investment are also on the agenda, while China is expected to announce purchases of U.S. products related to Boeing jets, agriculture, and energy.
I think both leaders are very committed to trying to prevent a breakdown in the truce that the two leaders have set. They want to avoid escalation and a return to sort of tit-for-tat measures and countermeasures against each other that are mutually harmful. They each, for their own reasons, want to buy time to build insulation against each other. And that's, I think, going to be the undercurrent of the meeting between the two leaders.
Leading up to the summit, Vice Premier He Lifeng is traveling to South Korea with a high-level delegation for a new round of economic and trade consultations with U.S. counterparts on Tuesday and Wednesday. Beyond trade negotiations, the Trump-Xi meeting will veer into geopolitical tensions of mutual concern, such as the Taiwan question. There is also mounting pressure for Trump to draw a line under his war with Iran, with regional stability and global economy hanging in the balance. The Republican president is expected to resume previous discussions with Xi about scaling back Beijing's support for Tehran, including buying Iranian crude oil and providing dual-use components and potential arms exports. Additionally, some Trump aides are expressing concern over advanced AI models being developed by China, claiming a channel of communication is needed to avoid conflicts arising from their use. Analysts say Washington is eyeing talks on nuclear arms control, although officials in Beijing remain reluctant to discuss their arsenal or anything along those lines at present. The government is consulting the public on the number of licenses for ride-hailing services this week. It is considering issuing at least 10,000 licenses in the initial phase, with a likely cap of 15,000. Samantha Lee reports.
Following the enactment of the primary legislation for ride-hailing platforms last year, the Transport and Logistics Bureau is submitting a document to the Legislative Council regarding the licensing scale. The government will start with at least 10,000 licenses during the initial phase of regulating ride-hailing platforms. The number may be capped at 15,000. So what do residents think? This man argued that the government should not have too much control, noting that ride-hailing services are an inevitable global trend. Meanwhile, this woman expressed concern that capping the number of licenses could negatively impact commuters who might not be able to secure a ride during busy holiday periods. The Legislative Council passed a primary framework last October, under which separate licenses are required for platforms, drivers, and vehicles. Platforms holding ride-hailing service licenses must be registered in Hong Kong and conduct due diligence on their drivers and vehicles. Drivers must be at least 21 years old with no serious traffic convictions in the past 5 years, while vehicles should be less than 12 years old and undergo annual inspections and carry third-party insurance. To many taxi drivers, the quota for licenses may directly affect their livelihoods.
而家的士而家有5大車隊都網約啦。
Kwan Singh, permanent president of the Taxi Dealers and Owners Association, pointed out that 5 major taxi fleets already offer e-hailing, but face high operational costs, including new cars under 3 years old, inspection twice a year, and expensive insurance. He urged the government to level the playing field to ensure cab and ride-hailing drivers are treated identically. The panel on transport has scheduled a meeting this Tuesday, when the licensing issue will be put on the table. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
Restaurants can begin applying for dog-friendly permits starting next Monday as part of the government's measure to loosen restrictions on canines in eateries. This as the Food and Environmental Hygiene Department stressed restaurant owners must report cases of dogs injuring patrons to the police, with establishment's license holder required to alert authorities within 2 working days. Timothy Lee reports.
Dog owners and their beloved pets can begin dining at Hong Kong's restaurants as early as this July. The Food and Environmental Hygiene Department earlier introduced the new dog-friendly application arrangements in a briefing session, with some 100 representatives from the catering sector in attendance. The FHD noted after the measure comes into force in July, an adaptation period lasting for 1 month will be granted. Restaurants that acquire the dog-friendly permit can choose which days or designated periods to allow the canines to enter their establishments. The restaurants must also display a sign on the front door indicating that food items must not be heated on their dining tables. Addressing possible cases of canines injuring patrons inside the restaurants, owners are required to alert the police, with the establishment's licensed owners mandated to send a report to the FHD within a period of 2 working days. This, as FHD Director Man Kit stressed, restaurants are responsible for cleaning up any urine or feces left behind by the animals on their premises, but emphasized there should be healthy communication between restaurant owners and patrons on the issue. Under the current measure, restaurants are also barred from preparing food for dogs, noting that dog owners must bring their own prepackaged dog food. Meanwhile, restaurants seeking to acquire the dog-friendly permit can apply online on the FHD website starting next Monday, with the current quota limited to 1,000. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Hong Kong cybersecurity officials on Monday remind local Canvas users to beware of phishing attacks. This comes after a hacker group attacked the US-owned learning management system and leaked the data of millions of users last week. Mimosa Ngai reports.
Canvas is a cloud system used by students and teachers across the world to manage assignments, course notes, and grades. The breach is estimated to have affected about 9,000 global education institutions, including 5 in Hong Kong. The hacker group Shiny Hunters claimed responsibility for the data breach after the incident and set a negotiation deadline of May 12 for Instructure, the parent company of Canvas. The group threatened to leak the stolen data if Instructure ignored the deadline. While reports say Canvas had resumed service, the Hong Kong Computer Emergency Response Team Coordination Center said affected institutions and individuals should remain cautious. The center said hackers may attack Canvas users with phishing links.
We actually don't know what the hacker has already obtained in terms of what they can do with the system. I think the special concern is on anything that you received, whether it's an email, a text message, whatsoever, you have to pay extra attention, especially if it contains any link. You need to double check the code behind that link, whether it is really directing to the system or not.
The center added the Canvas hacking could serve as a reminder for companies and institutions that risks come when you depend on third-party cloud services. Mums 9, TVB News.
The government is proposing legislative amendments that would require operators of claw and pinball machines to obtain licenses. This as the Home and Youth Affairs Bureau recommends regulating amusement devices with prizes that involve gambling risks or the potential for addiction. Under the proposal, operators are required to apply for a license and display notices in a prominent position at the entrance of the premises clearly. They may also be mandated to show warnings on risks of addiction on the machines. Meanwhile, the Bureau also proposes bringing internet cafes under the licensing regime instead of just following a code of practice. One suggestion is to restrict internet cafes to operate only as an adult premises or as a child premises. Another approach is to allow them to run only if they meet the stringent standards set by the government. Welcome back. Passengers evacuating the hantavirus-hit cruise ship begins flying home Sunday after the vessel anchored in the Canary Islands. One disembarked passenger tests positive, while another is developing symptoms. The World Health Organization is asking passengers to quarantine for 42 days when they return home. Gloria Feng has more.
For the first time in more than a week, passengers of luxury cruiser MV Hondias disembark as the ship docks at Tenerife in Spain's Canary Islands. Identified cases of hantavirus that killed 3 and infected 5 others left the cruise in limbo off the coast of Cape Verde, as Spanish authorities and the World Health Organization determined the course of action for disembarking passengers. Authorities have finished the first day of evacuations, a coordinated international effort which saw more than half of the 147 passengers and crew heading home, says Spanish Health Minister Monica Garcia.
We have finished the first day of the evacuation of the Endus. The operation has gone well, and according to the plan, we have disembarked 94 people of 19 nationalities, 7 flights with 8 nationalities and 1 with 11 nationalities, the flight of Netherlands, and one of the French citizens has had mild symptoms during the flight, and the French authorities will proceed to implement their control and their protocol.
While the WHO's Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus reiterates the risk of an outbreak is low, workers at the port of Granadilla were in full protective gear as they assisted the evacuation. Authorities say all passengers will be checked for symptoms and are forbidden to have any contact with local population.
Our advice is clear. Starting from May 10, 42 days with active follow-up, 42 days of quarantine. But it could be in a facility or at home. Of course, countries, we advise them, but at the end of the day, we don't impose. Countries follow their national guidelines, and based on the risk assessment, they can implement. But our guidance is very clear, and it has already been released.
Buses were seen carrying evacuees to a hospital in Birkenhead, England. The UK Health Security Agency says 22 British nationals will be held in quarantine at the hospital for a minimum of 72 hours, after which they will be asked to self-isolate at home for a further 72 days. On Saturday, a team of 6 paratroopers and 2 medical clinicians from the British Royal Air Force parachuted onto the remote South Atlantic territory of Tristan da Cunha to bring medication and equipment to a resident who was a passenger on the MV Hondias and disembarked a month ago. One medic says an airdrop was the only timely way to get to Britain's most remote inhabited overseas territory, which takes 6 days to reach by boat from Cape Town. Gloria Feng, TVB News.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer is fighting for his job as calls for his ouster grow even among his own Labour Party after disastrous local election losses. Starmer argued today that he could change tack and revive his government's fortune. He said he will push for closer links with the European Union, which the UK left in 2020.
We lost some brilliant Labour representatives. That hurts. And it should hurt. I get it. I feel it. And I take responsibility. The last government was defined by breaking our relationship with Europe. This Labour government will be defined by rebuilding our relationship with Europe, by putting Britain at the heart of Europe, so that we are stronger on the economy, stronger on trade, stronger on defence, you name it. Because standing shoulder to shoulder with the countries that most share our interests, our values, and our enemies, that is the right choice for Britain. That is the Labour choice.
Thousands protested against anti-Semitism outside UK's Downing Street on Sunday. Demonstrators waved Israeli and UK flags as well as anti-Iran banners. They called on the UK government to do more to protect its Jewish population after the stabbings of 2 Jewish men in London earlier. A 45-year-old was charged with attempted murder of the 2 men. Police called the attack an act of terrorism. There had been a string of incidents including arson attacks on synagogues and other Jewish sites in the British capital. Speaking at the Asia Summit of the 5th International Healthcare Week hosted by the Hong Kong Trade Development Council, Chief Executive John Lee says the city's work will complement the nation's 15th five-year plan and collectively push for medical innovation with other Greater Bay Area cities.
This year is transformative for our regulatory landscape. In March, we began the phased implementation of primary evaluation for new drugs registration. That marks a milestone in our transition to a fully independent drug evaluation framework. We aim for full implementation by 2030. I'm also pleased to announce that the Hong Kong Centre for Medical Products Regulation will be established by year's end. That will put Hong Kong on the map as a trusted hub for regulatory excellence.
The summit brings together more than 90 medical sector officials and experts from across 15 countries and regions. Among the primary topics discussed at the event was the integration of AI in the development of the medical sector in Asia. That's the news. Thank you for watching.